Yeah, we have an awesome morning, and we've already had a great morning, but we have an awesome panel here this morning. And the first thing we're going to do is, I guess I introduce myself, which I wore a tie today, so you take me seriously, but I actually am a professor in this department. I teach in the strategic communication side. I'm the director of our online programs. And so maybe you've seen my video somewhere on our website, but I don't get to be here in 3D very often. So it's really awesome. It's humbling to be here in person to do something cool like this. And my name's Imran Haider. So we're going to go around, do a rapid fire intro section, and our panels will kind of tell you why they're spectacular in about 90 seconds or less. So we'll start here with Garrett.
Hi, I'm Garrett. That is what I said to Amethyst 12 years ago when I met her on campus during honors orientation. And now we're married and we own a small business together. And it's really surreal to be here. Go Cougs!
I'm Amethyst. Garrett's wife. Just kidding. I'm not kidding, I am. And he said that to me, and we were the only two comms students in the Honors College that year, so it was a really special time for us. We now own and operate People First Communications. We do fundraising and marketing support for any nonprofits that are working on housing insecurity. So that's anything from emergency, overnight shelter, all the way over to building affordable housing projects. And we partner with them to help fundraise and also to help tell the stories of the people that they're serving.
Hello, I'm Jacob Granneman, and I work in documentary filmmaking. I get bored easily, so I've bounced around a lot of different places, but I've gotten to work the last few years with like over 50 different nonprofits in Southwest Washington, basically doing documentary filmmaking marketing for them. So interviewing everything from youth theater to women's clinics, clean water initiatives, new building programs, all kinds of different cool stuff. Just recently got back from Rwanda, so if I'm a little out of it, that's why. It was a little bit of a journey. Got to do some amazing work there. And more recently, kind of stepping back into the marketing world a little bit, but everything with a camera and visuals and telling stories. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Josh. And it was about 5 minutes ago that I said that to Jacob here on campus. But it is pretty surreal as well to be back here. 13, 14 years later, Rebecca. And graduated from Murrow, StratCom, and I now do fundraising, healthcare fundraising with the MultiCare health system. I work for the Memorial Foundation in Central Washington State. And one of the coolest jobs. I don't get to go to Rwanda, but I get to kind of live in the intersect of purpose and people and connect people to healthcare passions from what we say beginning of life to end of life and every journey in between. We help fund vital services and programs for little NICU babies fighting for their lives, inpatient pediatric unit, specialized pediatric health care through children's hospitals, cancer care, getting access to preventative and wellness care in Yakima County for individuals that are far below the poverty line, may not have the access to go to Seattle or Spokane to bigger health systems, end-of-life care, and a whole plethora of other things. So excited to be here.
All right, thank you. First team all Murrow lineup. So a couple housekeeping things. I do want to encourage questions. I think that this is going to be more productive if you're able to, pops up in your head that you're like, I really would love to ask a specific part of the conversation. Please raise your hand and ask the questions as needed. And so, because we want to encourage you to keep it interactive. Couple things I want to set up before we get this conversation started is just, Roger Nias said something about deciding what you stand for. And I think that this panel is really, that is the energy in the room. Like, this is what it's all about, deciding what you stand for. They wake up in the morning, and obviously with their intros, you can tell that they make a difference in society. So I think I want you to think about that. All the students in here, what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? What is creating that jump for you that you want to pursue? And so we can listen to them kind of taking sort of maybe a non-traditional path to make an impact in society. And the first thing I want to do is, most people don't actually know the legit definition of a nonprofit. How many people know that off the top of their head without AI in it? Exactly. All right. So I am going to call on somebody to read that definition real quick. And how about Annie?
A nonprofit's organized for a social or public benefit rather than to generate profit for shareholders or owners.
Okay, does that sound about right? So just to keep in mind on the back burner sort of is nonprofits can collect money, but they don't use it to pay themselves, right? They can use it to pump or funnel back into community benefit. So we just want to kind of keep that in mind because I think that gets twisted up sometimes. So the first question we're going to ask is, when did you realize what you wanted to do? And that, I think that's going to be a great way for us to start because it sort of gives students an idea of where you're at in your life academically. You're not maybe a true grown-up yet with mortgages to worry about. You can kind of start to feel out like where do you want to go in life? So we'll start with Garrett, and you can kind of tell us that story.
Great. Yeah, I came to Washington State University thinking that I wanted to be a news anchor on Good Morning America. Not doing that. But I'm so glad that I had that dream because that's what led me to WSU. I'm actually from Nevada, so I'm curious, do we have any out-of-state students? Yeah, wow, quite a few. That's awesome. So Murrow is like one of the main reasons why I came to WSU. Had such a great experience within the college, learned so much, and similar to what Roger said this morning, just remained open to the possibilities, the opportunities, and going from wanting to be a broadcaster to then doing government communications, and to now finding myself within the nonprofit sector, doing a lot of communication work with fund development and storytelling. And I think something that I would just like to impress upon you all is you can build your career. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be linear or have certain steps. You can build it, and if you remain curious throughout your career to where you're remaining open to possibilities, what doors might open through the people that you meet, really spending time thinking, what do I really care about? What am I curious about? And following that line of thinking until you really found like you found it, but also to keep the growth mindset that you're always learning, you're always changing. And so maybe you just have this North Star that you're working towards. And today for me, that is the thing that I stand for, going back to Roger. I believe that everyone should have a safe and stable place to live. And that's the foundation of People First Communications. Again, we work with nonprofits who are addressing housing insecurity, making sure that everyone has access to safe and stable housing. Because unfortunately, homelessness continues to grow in our country. And a lot of people think it's always been an issue, but it's relatively new, like historically speaking. Homelessness really became an issue starting in the 70s. And now it's really gotten out of control. So we're working with groups to address that because home, for us, is the foundation to everything else in life.
Awesome, thank you. Jacob, go ahead.
So I think for me, I was actually standing right outside the Murrow building, and I kind of had this crisis of confidence where I was like, I wanted to come here and be like Woodward and Bernstein and be this weird guy with a news pad, And then I was like, I really enjoy the camera, and I really enjoy seeing into someone's soul and getting them to open up to other people. Did I do the wrong thing? Should I be in film school? And I just had this moment of peace where I was like, no, communication is broad, sweeping, and far-reaching. And there is no industry on earth that does not need people to help them communicate. And so I kept going from there, and it's really been very beneficial because there's not a lot of people in my production world that have a journalistic background. There's a lot of people that have a lot of skills when it comes to production. They come from the film world, they come from the television world, but they don't know how to ask questions. And I can't stop talking. I love asking questions. I love being asked questions. And so I kind of just continued to foster that in Murrow because obviously I was in the JMP program, so I had to interview people all the time. And I had to push myself to ask questions that sometimes are uncomfortable. Many of you are learning that right now. And so that's served me very well in the recent years, especially talking to people in very sensitive situations. Kind of like Garrett and Amethyst have talked about, there's so many people that need the connection of an organization to elevate them, to elevate their voice, because whether it's through domestic violence, because they have experienced houselessness, because they've experienced some kind of addiction. I've interviewed people of all those different backgrounds, and they just light up when somebody is able to say, you know what, let's take a deep breath. We're friends here. Ignore the camera. We're just here for you to tell the story that you want people to know. And yeah, I mean, I cry a lot of times when I interview people because it's just, it really been beautiful to get to use that journalistic endeavor. But, you know, there's obviously a place to expose things with journalism, but there's also this job where you get to lift people up with journalism, which is something that I didn't come into Murrow thinking was possible, and now I get to do it every day. So it's been very, very beneficial to have that moment of recognition that it's okay. You can do documentary and film work and be in journalism. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Staring into someone's soul. We'll remember that. And Josh, go ahead and take the same question.
Yeah, for me, my pathway was not linear at all. And I grew up actually as a patient, pediatric patient at Seattle Children's for about 10 years of my life. Did not know that at one point moving forward, that would kind of come full circle, and I needed that kind of therapy, I guess, of getting to help fundraise and help kids like I once was as a patient at a pediatric facility, which really was super empowering for me. And like I said, a very therapeutic, almost therapy-like session for myself. But I started out my career in annual giving, corporate campaigns, raising money and doing campaigns for the Children's Miracle Network. And then about halfway through my career, about 5 years ago, I left for GISA Credit Union and thought, oh man, if I could be on the other side of the table getting to help write the checks and give away the money to all these incredible causes, that is the dream. That's the goal. Had a blast for 2 years. Actually, my team got to be part of the team that helped put together the partnership and sponsorship of GISA Field at Martin Stadium, which was an awesome project to be part of. But kind of through that, I was like, man, something is missing. Something just in my heart is not feeling fulfilled. And I learned through that kind of transition that I needed to be embedded in one singular mission. For me, that's what fuels my fire. That's what keeps me going, is being a part of one cause, being fully in it. So a new job opened up at the foundation that I had left from and did not burn any bridges, kept kind of some mentorships there, and was able to transition back into a different role 4 years ago. And my kind of big key takeaway to my boss was, when you first hired me 10 years ago, this was a job. Now I'm coming back, and this is a career. This is a purpose. This is a mission.
Awesome energy. Any questions for anybody so far? All right, when I come back, there better be one. So it's important, Roger kind of talked about this, it's important to say somebody's name correctly. And there's a name on our panel that I really want you to make sure that you say correctly. Can you say it with me? Josh. So funny. All right, just kidding. Can you say it for us so that everybody can repeat it?
Yeah, my name is Amethyst, like the gemstone.
All right.
It's like a thing you've probably seen. A lot of hippies like them.
All right, everybody say it together. All right. Hey, it hits my core because my name has been pronounced in like 100 different ways in my life, so I just wanted to take time to say that. But so this question is for you. Was there a class or a moment in college that inspired you to find your purpose?
Oh man, I don't know if this is working. You guys can hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I asked to answer this question, and then now that I'm answering it, I'm like, what was my answer? I think in college I had a really great time working for the Evergreen, and also I was an intern for a literary journal, and I would credit probably both of those things with being pretty formative to how I got to where I am today. I would say in college when I came to WSU because I wanted to be a frontline correspondent for wars over in the Middle East. That was like my dream. and I was like, WSU is the place to go. I was from LA, half from Arizona. And I was like, WSU, this is the place I need to be. When I got here, I had a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of really different, incredible people. I minored in comparative ethnic studies, and that just like blew my entire world up, because all of a sudden I had this framework that everything is intersectional all the time. And I ended up getting to do a lot of really cool internships during the summers that I was in college, where I would go and work with nonprofits abroad. So between my freshman year and my sophomore year, I actually lived in Burma for 3.5 months, and I worked with a nonprofit over there. And when I came back to WSU for my sophomore year, it was when I was taking a lot of my media production classes. And so I had recorded a lot of film over there. I had done a lot of interviews with people that I was working with through the nonprofits. And by the time I came back, Com 210 was one of the classes that I took, that I like learned how to kind of like create some of these like media components. And obviously Com 300 I know is really tough, but that really impressed upon me the importance of getting the story right, and being able to use the information in the stories that I had gathered in my lived experience and really put them into stories that restored maybe like an element of humanity, or connected to this common core of humanity that people in Pullman, Washington, like raise your hand if you've ever been to Burma. Yeah, so I think like coming back here and being able to get to tell those stories in a classroom setting, get to share them with my peers, and then also I was a videographer for the Evergreen, so I think that was really special to me, and those skills that I learned I use today to help tell the stories of our clients every day.
Well, real quick, talk about Com 300.
Yeah, so Com 300, I don't know if y'all have it as tough as we did anymore, but if you missed a period, you could fail the assignment. And I think that kind of thing, I know it feels annoying, and I know AI is on the horizon, which that's a discussion for a whole other time, because everyone has their own feelings, and we should probably be talking about that. But I think Com 300, in terms of getting a story correct, I cannot impress upon you how important it is, as someone with a really unique name, to get people's names correctly, to get the facts correct, to get addresses correct, to get information correct. Through our work, we are really lucky to work on a lot of press releases and earned media stories. If you miss a number in an address, if you miss a letter in someone's name, it's gonna get printed that way, and you're the one that's accountable for it. So take Com 300 serious. I know it can be difficult. That was the lowest grade I got in all of college, which was really tough for me. But it made me a better storyteller, and I still use the skills that I got from Com 300.
Love hearing that. I think a lot of our students need to hear that.
Can I make a quick comment too?
Please, please.
I think to kind of piggyback off of that with Com 300, it really, same thing, I failed more than one paper on misspelling someone's name, and it really taught me the power of someone's name and the importance of someone's name. In my world, it's a patient's name, it's a donor's name, it's, everyone is someone and has that power and has that purpose. And I know that sounds very woo-woo, but it really is in our line of work, and really my belief in humanity's line of work, someone's name and someone's being is super important and super worthy. And that class just really laid the foundation work for that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
10-second tack on?
Of course. We've opened up some memories.
So I don't know if they still have tutors for Com 300. I was a tutor for Com 300. I would sit in there, guys, and I would do my homework, because no one would come in. No one would come in. Use the tutors, because I don't know. It's just, there is people that you want to do it together. It's the whole thing. If you want to go far, go together, right? Go and do the assignments together, ask questions together, because a lot of times it would just be me and my buddy Chris sitting in there, because nobody would come in and do papers. And it's a good resource. It's really fun. So use your peers to help you get better at stuff.
Jacob, let's stay with you. So was there a classroom moment in college that inspired you to find your purpose?
Yeah, I think there were a couple. I would say that probably one of the ones that was most connective for me was I took a photojournalism class from a gentleman who I cannot remember his name right now. I could picture his face. He's from New York. He swore a lot, which just made the class amazing. Yes. Do you remember his name? Okay. I had lunch with him and stuff a couple times. But anyways, he was an AP photographer. And he used to tell us, like, you need to zoom with your feet. Go talk to the person you're photographing. Go interact with them. Buy them a sandwich. They can't buy you one, but you can buy them one, Stuff like this. And it was kind of funny, but it was one of those moments where I was like, everything is human. Everything is human. Everything is connected because we have a shared experience as human beings. And that doesn't really matter if you're photographing a construction worker or somebody in a war zone or somebody at a hospital or somebody at a sports event. They all are there because they're passionate about what they're doing. And if you can get them to crack open and share with you why they're passionate about it, the story will be better, your images will be better, and you'll get better at what you're doing because you're pushing yourself. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. So yeah.
Love that.
I don't even remember the name of the class. I think I forgot to answer that question.
If it comes to you, feel free to blurt it out. Okay, yes, please, question.
Going back to when you were talking about being a tutor for Com 300, for those students that are working and that are in clubs and don't really have time to go in for those tutoring hours, what is your biggest piece of advice for those?
That's a great question. Because that is so real, right? Yeah, it's like I'm already overmaxed on my schedule. I would say one of the things that I found helpful was that I would talk to people that were ahead of me, right? So I came in, I had gone to community college, so I came in as a junior. So I found all the people that were getting ready to graduate my junior year, and I was just asked them questions. I did a lot of Cable 8, so there were a lot of them there. I would ask them questions there. It's like you're not even there talking about Com 300, but I'd be like, how in the hell did you make it through this class, And it would just be in those moments where I had time. The other thing is I think she's here today, but Roberta Kelly, if you just make friends with your professor, they're not going to give you a better grade, but you will get better information out of them because you're building a friendship with them. And that's what communication is making communication relationships. And so that was huge for me too. She honestly was very helpful. I definitely got the lowest grade as well of any class that I had, but she was still very helpful in helping me with that, even though I didn't have time sometimes to do the tutoring. So
Excellent question. Thank you. Will all the professors in the room please raise your hands so we can identify you? Because Roberta Kelly, Shmava, Roberta Kelly's getting some love at this event. And yeah, shout out to Roberta Kelly. I've heard her name a lot, and yeah, basically celebrity. Garrett, we'll come back to you. What is the most important aspect of communication you used week to week to be effective in your job?
Oh, wow. There's so many components, right? I would say, for me, listening is a big one. I feel like you're able to communicate at such a higher level if you take the time to listen first and really understand the person, the audience, the people who you're communicating with. What's keeping them up at night? What are their desires? If you're trying to nudge them to make a donation, if you're trying to nudge them to sign off on a project, like what are the things that really drive and motivate them? And that all starts with listening. And I think that skill set is really important, especially in today's world. It is so noisy, wow, I hope everyone takes breaks from social media. It is so overwhelming, and the chance to truly listen day to day, week to week, when we're working with our clients, we're telling stories about the success of, a mother who was living in her car and is now stably housed. Being able to truly listen and bring that level of empathy, knowing that you'll never fully understand, but you can do your best to put yourself in their shoes, and then also always be thinking about your audience. I think communications, how I initially thought of it, and sometimes I think the common way to think about it is very broadcast focused. I am telling the masses something, and oftentimes you are, but I would challenge you to think about one-to-one communication, 1-to-20 communication, the smaller relationship building type things, and listening is such a big component of that. So just think about who's your audience, and how listening can be a cornerstone to how you're a communicator.
Questions? Braden, go ahead, and then Go ahead, Braden.
For those like kind of on the way out and are looking for that first jump from like college life to professional life, do you guys have any words of advice on how to do that when maybe like you don't have something set up right now?
Such a good question. Oh, are you guys okay if I take the first? Okay. I remember being terrified about graduating. One, I loved WSU so much and I didn't want to leave. I might have had too much cougar pride, arguably. Also, I was like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. So to be completely vulnerable, I was like, well, I'll just keep going to school. So I applied to grad school, and I'm really glad that I did that experience. But that's something too, if you really enjoy learning, think about grad school. But beyond that, I would say a lot of what Roger said today. I think what sets Kooks apart is we are relationship builders, but we're also scrappy. We're scrappy, we know how to get from point A to point B, even if you might have to veer off a little bit. So really rely on your network, ask those questions, and know that one thing will lead to another. And 5-year plans don't exist. You can have your North Star and go towards that, but as you meet people, as you work, you'll gain skill sets and get to work towards that. And with that, I think this is a good time for the plug.
Okay, let's do the plug. I like it.
People first. We're looking for student interns. We have an internship interest form. So if you scan that little code, we're just asking for your name and email, and then we'll let you know when we have internship opportunities available. But do what you can to get involved. And yeah, right away, also just be patient with yourself and be kind. Some people have things lined up, other people don't, and that's okay, that's life. But stick to yourself and your values.
Can I add something?
Please do.
The one thing our family and our business operates on so often, and if you leave this with nothing else, even as you're leaving college or if you're at the beginning of your experience here, if you don't already have a job, if you don't already have something lined up and you ask somebody for help and they say no, that's the absolute worst thing that could have happened, and it was already a no to begin with. So just be brave and ask. The worst thing that will happen is that an opportunity that didn't exist still doesn't exist. But the best thing that can happen is that now you have a relationship and they're like, actually, we don't need this job right now, but we need this job. And I was really fortunate to have a job straight out of college because I explored the jobs that I had as a student. You mentioned being really busy. When I was a student at WSU, I had 5 jobs and 22 credits a semester, and it was horrible. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. But at the end of my time here, because I had worked in admissions, I had worked at the Evergreen, I worked out in the community as well, I went to all of those people and was like, I'm panicking because I'm graduating and I'm really scared and I don't know what's gonna happen, help. And a lot of them were like, there's nothing we can do. But one of them was like, actually, there's an opening and we might be able to create a position for you. And I never would have known that had I not just been brave enough to be like, I'm scared, please help. So if I could encourage you to do anything, your humanness is your greatest asset.
That's such simple advice and so excellent. It needs to be said. Please, yeah, go for it.
The way that I think it was you had asked the internship question or a job out. So I did an internship. I didn't get paid for it. I just did the credit thing. But what I did is I actually went to, there's a husband and wife team that I knew from church back in Portland, and they own a production company. And I just said, hey, can I get coffee with you the summer between my junior and senior year? And I said, you guys do a lot of work with big brands, even though you're small, and you do a lot of work with organizations that do really cool things for people. So there was businesses and there was nonprofit work, but they were just this team. They'd build production teams per project, and that was it. I said, can I be your intern? And a little too loudly in the coffee shop, my friend Ryan was like, so you'll be like slave labor for us? And I was like, I mean, you can say it that way, but maybe not that loud in this coffee shop. And it was amazing because I just only worked with them for 4 months, but when I got back, I would do shoots with them. They paid me as a contractor. They opened up opportunities to my current job, and they taught me how to love storytelling by loving the people. Whether it's a company, or a nonprofit or an initiative. And so that was something where it was funny, my friend Ryan actually has since passed away, unfortunately. And I remember at his memorial, his buddy introduced me to his friend. He's like, yeah, this is Jacob. He's the first and last intern of Harder Creative. And that is hilarious because I am the only one they've ever done, but it was such an opening for me because it made sense for me. And so that's the thing, kind of like Amethyst said, ask around. The worst thing they can say is no. Think outside the box. It might be an organization that doesn't currently do internships, but if you talk to them, even like Roger was saying with Alaska, they might be like, yeah, we actually would love to do something like that. So just, be brave. Some people are mean, but most people are interested in people who are interested in them. So express yourself to them, yeah.
We're going to come back to you just a second. I'm going to go to Josh for this question, and then I'll come back to you, okay? I didn't forget. Josh, I want to make sure that you get to answer this question before we move to the audience. What is the most important aspect of your communication you use week to week to be effective in your job?
Listening, could 100% echo that. But I think for me in the realm of healthcare, it's consistency as well as clarity. I sometimes, more often than not, have to have a grasp or understanding of all things healthcare and know just enough to be dangerous and just enough to have a conversation with the donor about it if they have a question for me about it. For example, currently right now, our nursing union is having union conversations with the health system. Donors are hearing and seeing nurses doing informational picketing. That is nowhere in the realm of what I'm raising money for, but it is perception and perceived reality to the community and to my donor base. And being able to be equipped with the information, being able to somewhat have a grasp on the process and understanding, as well as then be able to clarify that consistently, effectively to donors that may ask questions about it or be honest and say, hey, I don't have the answer for that right now, but let me go and get that for you, and then circle back and build trust through that conversation.
All right, my friend, go for it.
I actually have two. Talking about internships, what is something you guys think stands out between applicants of internships? What is something that you look at and you're like, that person
Right after he took the QR code, scanned it, thinking about what he needs to say. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, can you write an email without AI? That is like my biggest pet peeve.
Let's go. Let's go.
Can you do a greeting correctly on an email? Please don't type in all lowercase with no punctuation. That drives me crazy. The biggest thing that we look for when we're looking for people to work with through our business is people who are willing to be scrappy enough and human enough to be adaptable. So what we're doing is telling some really vulnerable stories. We work with really incredible people who have these incredible testimonies of resilience that are like amazing, brilliant stories, and they're trusting you with their vulnerability. So we're meeting with families who've experienced unsheltered homelessness. Maybe they're living outside, maybe they're living in their car. We're meeting with people who maybe formerly used drugs or are still using drugs and they're on their recovery pathway. When you're meeting with them, we need you to be a person who's able to just sit there in your common humanity and not kind of like freak out a little bit because it's uncomfortable. And it is uncomfortable. We shouldn't live in a world where no one has their basic human needs yet. And unfortunately, we do. So can you write an email without AI? Can you write like a compelling story that really has like a core tenet of humanity? It's not just like a formulaic essay. And then are you responsive? And are you adaptable? And I could probably say a lot more, but those are my core ones.
That's a great answer. I think until AI can do your job interview for you, which I don't think it can yet, we should use that at an arm's length, right? Can we all give passive agreement on that? So go ahead, Rebecca. Yeah.
To add, so Professor Strong. So to your question, so does it also help for them to talk about some of the service learning projects they're doing? Because they are.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are with healthcare, so it's
That's awesome.
I think like one of these, the job market is crazy right now. I don't envy any of you leaving college right now. I'm really sorry. COVID sucked for everyone and I'm so sorry. But like we already talked about, like look for the helpers, just like Mr. Rogers says, like we are here to make sure that you're able to go out in the world and make a difference if that's what you want to do. And if we're going to interview an intern and we want to know all of those things are true, we're probably going to ask you like, what's your experience working with actual people? So like what areas of service have you engaged in? Are you working with people on like a more regular basis? Are you getting out of your comfort zone? And then we'll ask you like, what does that mean to you? Like what lessons have you learned? Like anytime we ask a question, one thing we always say in our family is like, ask the question, and when you think you have the answer, ask one more question. Like we'll ask you, what's your experience been? Once you answer us, we'll be like, okay, and how was it meaningful to you? How has that informed the way that you're gonna do this work? So if you're doing service learning, which like 10 out of 10 recommend, make sure that you weave that into every conversation you have.
Nice, Rebecca.
Sorry.
I know, it's great. Let's do it. We have no shame. Go ahead.
I love that. I've heard a lot of people talk about like staying true to your values in your career and choosing to work in an area that you really like align with what they believe. As someone who's a freshman and not really sure where they're gonna end up, if you don't end up in a nonprofit area, what are a few ways you can still like be aligned with your values in a service space while not being in a nonprofit area?
Can I take a stab at this?
Go for it, please.
So, obviously, big fan of nonprofit work here, but I think in today's world of CSR and corporate social responsibility and philanthropy, a lot of for-profit companies as well have that sector, that avenue that sometimes, because it's still kind of a unpaved road, it can sometimes fall under the marketing department, it can sometimes fall under HR. It's just kind of navigating through looking at that company's values. Do they align with your values? Seeing who their philanthropic partners are. Did that align with your values? And then there's always someone on the other side of the table that I'm working with, or I'm sure Garrett's working with, when we're building partnerships or asking for funds, that is their day-to-day job, or at least a part of it as well too. So while I'm always pro of, for me, being embedded in the mission solely and fully, there's also avenues with for-profit companies that we partner with that get to do that day-to-day work as well too.
Yeah, go for it. Add to it.
I actually have lived that because I actually just changed jobs, but I work for a for-profit company. It's a manufacturing company. It's part of the global supply chain in robotics. All those nonprofits I've worked with, they have office space in our manufacturing building because our leadership donates it to them. And so my job used to be to, as a member of the company's team, we still did marketing for the company, but we also did all these videos for these nonprofits. And so, yeah, there really are ways. Like I live in Vancouver, and the Murdoch Trust has a huge presence in Vancouver and Portland. And they connect with many companies to basically create a causeway for them to then connect with, initiatives and nonprofits. And honestly, like actually, when I was on my Rwanda trip, we were having dinner, and the ministry that I was working with, they asked me this question. They said, how are you able to kind of do this in a corporate world? Like, how does this even exist? And I said, honestly, it's integrity and empathy. Because if you are doing the right thing because it's the right thing and not because it looks good for your company, and you're working with a company that has that mentality, that is so much more powerful. And empathy transcends everything, right? Like, I don't know if any of you have read Brene Brown. My dad, who's in the audience today, got me connected with Brene Brown's books. She talks about like the power of empathy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be in science, you could be in manufacturing, you could be in police work, you could be in literally anything, education. Empathy is what drives people to want to do this kind of work. There's certainly people who do it for the wrong reasons, but empathy is really easy to identify, I think, because it's authentic. And so, yeah, that integrity and that empathy inside a company goes a long way.
Yes, Kate.
So, a question: when you're entering as an entry-level worker into the workplace, I always think, how can you show your employer what you have to offer, while also helping them know and just ensuring them that you're internalizing all the lessons they have to offer?
I'll answer really quick.
Yep.
I love talking. So, consistently delivering quality work is going to go farther than you saying anything ever. if you're like telling them, oh yeah, I remember when you said that, that's so different than you applying it consistently and demonstrating the quality of your work. Garrett and I have both had career trajectories where you enter in at the entry level, you're scraping by, you're barely making it, but you're making these connections along the way. And really, the reason we were able to start our own business, the reason our business has stabilized, the reason we're able to even do what we do at all is because we delivered quality work every single time to every single person. So I think like your question is like right on the right vein, but it's like less about like, how do I like demonstratively do this, and more about like, do I love this work? Am I going to do it well every time? And if the answer is yes, then like, I think you'll move forward automatically. But I would love for something.
Oh, I was just going to add, like, I did some coaching sessions with some awesome students yesterday. And one thing that one of them said to me that really triggered it for me is like, because my first job out of college, I didn't love. I was doing, like, working for a newspaper. But I decided, I was like, you know, they're giving me free reign of, like, what stories to cover. And so I went after nonprofit stories, which kind of led to the next job. And it's sometimes you just got to chew the meat and spit out the bones, because there are going to be aspects of it where you're just like, man, just scraping by here. But if you can find the thing, even if it's just 10% of your time in that job that you're passionate about, and you spend, you know, excellence on it, I think it, not always, but a lot of times it can expand, and it can grow into a new position, or it'll be more of a percentage of that job. It just takes time sometimes. So.
And I would challenge you to find little ways to make yourself stand out that aren't super blatant, but a strategy that my team has implemented with some of our donors the last year and a half has been looking for ways that let them know that we see them as people first, and checks and dollar signs way down the end of the road. And hey, we found out that they had a new grandbaby born. We're gonna send them a handwritten note card, or they got a promotion, or they had this really awesome, exciting thing that they posted on Facebook about that, you know, that other probably foundations and nonprofits aren't recognizing them for, but it's something that we're able to say, I see you for who you are. And that small little thank you note that I sent, there's a chance that might be pinned on, you know, their bulletin board, or even put in a drawer. But then down the road, when they're thinking about this opportunity, guess who comes to mind? The Memorial Foundation. So.
One more. Okay. Well, do you want to take audience questions? We can table ours, or is that cool?
Yeah, bring it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, every time I tell people like on like work for nonprofits and everything, their immediate reaction is usually like, oh, there's no money there, there's no money there. And like obviously it's not about the money for me, but I am a little worried about like sustainability. So I guess my question is like,
Okay.
really as bad as I say, you guys work like most of the job.
Yeah. Excellent question. Garrett wants to take a stab at that first.
Yeah, first off, thank you for the question. To be vulnerable with you all, my first nonprofit job, I got $35K plus benefits, and that was for the Idaho Nonprofit Center as an entry-level position. I will say that pay rates within the nonprofit sector vary a lot. Like, it really depends on the nonprofit. It depends on the state. If you choose to stay in the great state of Washington that adopted us, the pay is going to be better than in Idaho. So just be thinking about, you know, really knowing going into it. If they don't tell you the salary, I would like see that as a red flag personally. But make sure that it's something that works for you and works for your family. And unfortunately, nonprofit work is a privilege in a lot of cases. However, you can work up, and executive directors of nonprofits, leadership of nonprofits, they're making six figures. And then also, as Josh has said, there are so many ways that you can work adjacent to the nonprofit sector that might be a little bit more sustainable financially for you and your family. But please do not count the nonprofit sector out, because there are opportunities. For example, a director of development that we worked with recently and helped coach, their salary was $100,000 a year, and they're like 32. And so there are opportunities to really build that values-based career. And also, if not, you can maybe create your own in your own unique way. And there are so many ways to reach the same direction that you're going for. Just be patient and give yourself grace along the way.
I think just to add context to that, making money is so subjective, and I always ask my students, can you make a living? Can you pay your bills? The lifestyle, do you want to live in a townhouse? Do you want to rent? Do you want to buy? Do you want to have a car? Do you take public transit? And it's not about six figures, in my opinion. Don't throw tomatoes at me. But I think it's about, like, if you're making $65,000 a year, that may not be the most in your neighborhood or in your peer group, but if it's paying your bills and you love what you do, in my opinion, and I'm speaking from experience, it's worth it, right? So I think that the six figures pursuit gets really a lot of Kool-Aid and people get caught up in it, and it's a competition. I think it's overrated. I think what they're doing is meaningful, and that gets them out of bed and that keeps them happy and satisfied, and they can pay their bills. Maybe it's not going to be the highest salary, but I would take that any day of the week, right? So that's an excellent question.
Could I just say one?
Yeah, please.
We kind of hate the term nonprofit because it actually is really more accurate to say for impact than it is to say nonprofit, and that's a misnomer that I think has led to a lot of harm, unfortunately. I do want to acknowledge something which is like kind of related to this, which is that nonprofits are predominantly run by women. I'm aware that I'm the only woman on this panel. Also, I want to acknowledge that, just like Garrett said, working in a nonprofit a lot of times is for people that come from privileged backgrounds, and I think it would be irresponsible to not recognize that. I mentioned earlier intersectionality, so I would encourage all of you, if you don't know the term intersectionality, that's totally fine. Questions are welcome. But I would encourage all of you to be intersectional thinkers and think about kind of what aspects of your identity may lend you more privilege in the spaces that you're operating in and how you want to leverage that privilege. For me, I grew up in a very low socioeconomic household. I am a woman, but I am also white. And so I was able to be in rooms where I could turn around and open the door and have the opportunity to say, like, whose voice deserves to be the loudest here? Because a lot of the times, it's not mine. And I think, like, when you work in the nonprofit sector, I guess I just bring that all up to say, like, working in the nonprofit sector is a privilege. We would really love to see the nonprofit sector shift away from that. It is BIPOC communities, LGBTQ communities across our country, across the world that are doing incredible work and often under-recognized and underpaid for it. And it's usually white people who are making the most money in the nonprofit sector. So I just encourage you to think a little critically about that, kind of explore how you feel about that. And then also when you are in, I do my work with People First, which is so meaningful to me, but also a quarter of the time I'm a research assistant for a lab at the University of Edinburgh. And we do work on genocide, specifically in MENA countries, and then also in East and Southern Africa. And my supervisor said to me one day, there's gonna come a day where you're gonna have a platform, and at that time, you get to decide whose voice you're gonna welcome to the table and whose is gonna be the loudest in the room. And so I just say that to say, like, when you are considering nonprofit work, consider it as, like, this isn't just a job, this is your social responsibility to fulfill your civic duty and to represent the interests of people whose needs are often underrepresented, who go under-recognized, who are underserved systemically. So you can make money, but also I think, like, the last thing on that is, like, a lot of the times, all of that plus a lot of the times people take advantage of people in the nonprofit sector because they're like, well, you don't have to be paid a lot because you're making a difference and that's all that matters. Do not accept that.
Yeah.
If you guys are working in the nonprofit sector and you leave here with nothing else, never accept that as an answer. Because you are making a difference, but you deserve to be compensated for your time. If you're a woman, you're probably going to get paid less than a man. You deserve to be compensated for your time. If you are someone from a BIPOC community, you deserve to be compensated for your skills and your time exactly the same way that everybody else in the sector does. So advocate for yourselves. I hear what you're saying. Everybody hears it. Don't think nonprofit, think for impact, and think about like, we're at this critical point in American history, now I'm on my soapbox, where we get to like define what the next iteration is gonna look like. If you decide to go into the nonprofit sector, we are at this really cool point where you can decide like, what do we want this to look like for the next generation?
And I would challenge society's view of nonprofits that I think donors are starting to get to a place that we don't, and I say this as a we because I'm a donor, we don't expect nonprofits to scrimp pennies and underpay their employees. Like, I am totally okay with an organization that I'm supporting that is using X percentage of my dollar to make sure their employees have a living wage, or make sure that I know it's going to cost X amount to raise X amount. So I think kind of this whole perspective shift, and donors are getting savvier, and donors are starting to see more transparently of how their dollars are impacting not just the cause, but the people that are working for the cause. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and then just like 10 seconds is like,
Sure.
There is a, like, I've worked with so many different nonprofits, and like one really quick example, right? So I just flew to Africa. We filmed with this ministry that's been there for 10 years. There's another organization that I've worked with for many years that works in Uganda. They've never wanted to send a team to capture stories because they kind of live with a poverty mindset where they're like, you know, we have these resources, we have these donors, but we can't use the money to tell people stories. We need to use it for the people, which is true. The money should go to the people that need help, but no one will know about them if you don't tell their story. And so it was very interesting because we worked with this organization for like less than a year, and they were like, let's go. Let's take a team right now. We're going to do it for as cheap as possible so that the money goes where it needs to go. But we're going to make sure we have all the tools we need and everybody's compensated justly and fairly. And that was really cool to see that because I'd worked with this other organization for years and they had just been like, oh, I don't know if we can, I don't know. They had this fear about it. And they're not a bad organization. They're doing good work. But it is cool when you have that courage to say, like Josh was saying, we have people behind us that expect this money to go to the people that are making this possible. And so, yeah, there's an element of that too where it's just like, see how they feel about that when you meet them. So,
all right, we're going to wrap. That was awesome, everybody. Very inspirational, and we would like to give them a hand and give you a couple minutes if you want to chat with them.